Welcome back to Forsland's Fun Factory yet again. We're back on the leather saddles today. You see we have the three we tested in our last segment. Today we're going to be wrapping up that series using our narrow saddle that's quite a bit more dried out than the others here. Mink oil, Neatsfoot oil, and leather lotion, whatever the heck that is. You can see I'm making a little bit of a mess. I'm dripping some. Whew. Just impressive. Now, let's take a moment to look at that. Hopefully you can see pretty well. It is quite a bit dried out, starting to crack around the rivets on both the front nose cone and the back. It's not very pliable, and it is sitting out just a little bit here. So it's not super pretty, but hopefully by the time we're done with it, it'll clean up quite a bit. So let's get this show on the road and kind of take a look at our other saddles too. Now we tested these with mink oil, Neatsfoot oil, and leather lotion, whatever the heck that is, which I thought was going to be the best, and just plain old not. If you listen, when you push on it, maybe you can hear that. It's kind of like cracking almost. Thought that was going to kind of lubricate that quite a bit more, and it did not. The Neatsfoot oil actually did a real good job of penetrating in quite well, whereas here you can't hear cracks anymore. It penetrated in and deep into the leather and made it quite a bit more malleable if you look also, which might be an option for us. And then the mink oil, which I have not actually wiped off entirely just yet. I've done the same too, but still getting a little bit of cracking. So my plan of attack on our narrow saddle is to go after it with Neatsfoot oil first, and then we're going to actually use this other mink oil, looks like it's a Kiwi brand, afterwards, after we let it soak in with the Neatsfoot oil. So that's our plan. Let's get to work. So
I felt like I was on a spaceship, and I'm not sure what to do with my hands. Be good just to hold them down by your side. Yeah, great.
Let's start off with this Neatsfoot oil. Again, this is super runny. Some of the contents looks like it settles, but this did the best with our second saddle over there. So we're gonna see if we can't get this to soak in to this underside first, because doing the underside first keeps you from becoming quite a bit more filthy if you were watching my other videos. Now the rails do need some work also, but I don't want to put any work into this saddle unless it actually does come back to life. So I'll clean those in the future, but clearly this is not worth much work unless I can get this leather to come back pretty well. Hopefully you can see some of this work that I'm putting in here. This Neatsfoot oil, trying to get this leather to soak it all up so it can become more pliable. And right now this is like, I don't want to say paper mache, but it's kind of like solid, rigid. Almost feels like it would tear if you put too much force into it. So we're really lubricating this up. Now if you watched my first video, I told you why I kind of love leather saddles and the sophistication of having one of these on one of your bikes, just super nice. But sometimes the care for them, it takes some work, that's for sure. And here we see some of that. If you let it sit for 30 years in a shed, it ain't gonna stay pliable and fancy and nice forever. You can see I'm making a little bit of a mess. I'm dripping some. I'm just using an old toothbrush that I actually used on the other saddles, and clearly it's not super clean, but that's okay. Sometimes messy jobs and have to happen. Messy foods are the best kinds, right? So messy jobs, best kinds? No, not really. Oh, that's too much. It'll be fine. Play Script Garage for you, and Cars and Cameras, quoting them guys a little bit here. On the other saddle, when I was using this, I actually got to work way up into the tongue, or the nose cone here from underneath, and hoping that this soaks all this up and becomes more pliable. Trying to get you guys some decent shots without being too boring, but in this content, I don't know if I've ever seen such in-depth content with leather saddles on YouTube anyways. So we're gonna wrap this up here, try to get as much both into the side layer, get the sides to be very, very soft, hopefully, and the nose cone, and then we're going to let this sit a little bit, soak in, and maybe apply 2 or 3 times, because both on the top and bottom, because this thing is so dry. So trying to work it in as best we can. And you can almost look at it and watch it soak in as you're applying it. If you're trying to get you a good shot, like it soaks in so quickly. Whew. Just impressive. So let's flip over to the top. You're seeing I already have kind of a line here. Let me even soak up a little bit off the table. It's almost like the, what's it called, end grain soaks it in a little bit quicker, but it all has to be done. I'm half tempted to just dump it on there. But don't want to go too ham with it where you just make a huge mess. Let it do its work over time. Try not to damage the saddle at all. Messy jobs. Maybe that's something now. All that extra stuff that you think you need to wipe off is so dry that it just soaks that stuff up. Hopefully this is coming through pretty well. Want to get 100% of coverage. Nice thick layer so it soaks in well. That darkened it up quite a bit, but it will dry back out. I'm just trying to get it to be pliable again, and the nose cone. Ooh, almost spilled over my. Should almost do a time lapse of wait for it to dry and a quick little time lapse of how long it takes to soak in. How cool would that be? Of course, it's not all that crazy long, you know, a minute or 2, even on the wettest parts. Don't want this nose cone to rip any more than it already has, so we gotta make sure we get that quite a bit. And there are the rivets here. Just doing a quick double layer around those things. If you can hear me breathing, it's because I've been sick the last couple of days. It's not great, but I've been sicker in the past. I don't know if you've had COVID yet or anything, but COVID can really take you down a notch. At least when I had the one type of it. So I'm going to let that soak in for a little while, and we'll come back to it, maybe for a second layer, and then we'll apply our mink oil afterwards. So stick around and wait.
2 moments later.
Alright, it's set for a little while. You see that, you know, like the rivets don't absorb any of that, of course. I got quite the mess over here from our bottle, and when I'm dipping this in. And we're going to do one more coat. We'll fast forward through this, and then maybe a quick little time lapse afterwards. So, here goes. See that, I suppose, if I'm not facing the right way. I should also say, you know, when I first got this saddle, the wings were sitting out, and the knees were kind of folded out this way, and I dipped it into water to make it a little bit more pliable. You can't leave it sit in that water for too long. It will cause issues, is what I've read anyways. I've never let one sit in the water too long, but I definitely don't want to do something too dangerous. And, you know, because the water will pull out other moisture, is my understanding. So, it'd be cool if this would come back all the way, that's for sure. but it's definitely absorbing it right in. We're gonna let that absorb in again also, and that'll be our last coat of Neatsfoot oil. I see that we're kind of burning through that container of it. It was way up here when we first started with our other video, but it's filthy. I'm gonna go wash. I tested a helmet cam, with a hat cam, just after we got done there, testing it out to see if it worked a little bit better. But I do have to watch where I kind of look at it, I guess, if I'm going to use this, because my eyesight covers wherever the camera goes, whereas my chest I just have to worry about what's going on in front of me, so I guess that's a little bit better. Still testing this out if you watch my canoeing video, trying to figure out the best method when I'm recording. And maybe you can see the glare, but I got such a puddle of Neatsfoot oil there that I'll have to clean up in a moment here while this is drying also. So let's get to that and back to being dirty in the hands again.
We're real happy with what was going on, and at the end of the day, you know, you gotta be happy.
Just there. Yeah. Try to save some of that. Just wipe it where we know we need it. I wish that Brooks emblem stayed there a little bit longer. This side's a little bit better than the other, but it'll all soak in. Before I go cleaning, you know, the table wasn't the cleanest in the world, as you can see, but it is what it is. I already cleaned it with Dawn dish soap, and just want to try to get as much of that in there as we can, because we know it needs it. And we'll probably end up fast forwarding a significant part of this, but we're going to clean up our workspace. Oops, dropped it. That's a bike farmer. Should do a whole video of just quotes, right?
Few moments later.
So, we've spent a little time, 2 coats of Neatsfoot oil, and you're seeing that this is now quite a bit darker. It is also getting darker in my room because of we're losing daylight here, but it's absorbing all that in very, very quickly. So we're still letting that soak here as we're waiting just a little while until we apply our Mink oil, which will be our next step. So let's get to applying our Mink oil. If you haven't ever seen one of these cans before, they're kind of cool. It seals really, really tightly, so we've struggled to get it to come apart, but they have this little pin. And you just make sure that point digs into the bottom of it, and you can use it to open it up. And then there you go. So this stuff is less waxy than I was thinking it was going to be, but that's okay. We're going to use the same brush that we used with the other Mink oil, so a little bit of contamination maybe, but that's okay. There's plenty of that. This stuff's almost like chunky, not cottage cheese chunky, but we got little kind of harder spots in there, whereas this stuff is, you know, really smooth. So we're going to apply some of that and see what it does. Same thing with this. The brush is not necessary. Just get it in there with your finger and spread it around. Brush maybe into these points here, but I suppose the tight spots would be the best. This stuff is pretty slimy, so you can feel where it lands, because where it's not bent, it's kind of almost dry compared to this. We're just going to let this stuff soak in for a long while. I'm half tempted to plastic bag it too, just to keep all the moisture in there, but I don't know, we'll see what happens. I think we're kind of done with Mink oil. Hoping that this soaks in very, very well. but it's definitely a gross thing to play around with. So less messy than the Neatsfoot oil, I guess, because it doesn't kind of spread everywhere, or the brush doesn't throw it everywhere. But that's that. We're gonna leave that sit for a little while, soak in. I might grab a plastic bag and just kind of lay it, or put it in the plastic bag. But it's gonna leave us for a little while, just waiting, and we'll polish it out, hopefully at some point in the future too. So right now, it looks kind of disgusting and gross, but hopefully that leather comes back, and we can clean up the rails too. Welcome back here. We're actually on day 2 now. I skipped a day, just kind of let it sit. And our saddle's been in a plastic bag, zip locked up, so no moisture can kind of escape. And I've looked it over, but I'm going to look over it with you in just a moment here. And we're going to see that this darn thing is dry still. So let's get to it. It is super slimy right now, of course, with the mink oil and the Neatsfoot oil all over it, but it is just still super rigid. So I'm just going to let it sit for a couple weeks and hope that she comes around. Of course, I'm not going to wait to put out this video. I'll let you know what I've done to it at least. And yeah, hopefully it comes around after soaking for a little while. Just for comparison here. All loose. Well, this of course is worn significantly. Basically backed off all the way on the net, but
much later.
well, it's only been a couple seconds for you, but it's been about a week for me. I've been letting this seat sit in this bag and just kind of absorb all of the mink and Neatsfoot oil that I certainly could let it. And it doesn't seem to be improving, so at this point we're just going to kind of wipe some of that off. This saddle must have been like brand new right before it got stored away in a shed and just dried away, so hopefully maybe riding it would bring it back to life a little bit more. So let's clean it off and see how it goes. Oh, and we're also going to clean the mink oil off of that one too. So we got our 2 saddles here, and the B72 and the B17 narrow one that we have been working with, and our old one. This one I hadn't cleaned the mink oil off of, but let's do that now. Still got a bunch in the white letters here, but we're not going to take the time to get it that clean today. I'm half tempted to do the underside, but let's move on to the one that's more important. Almost like sits up right on this hump here. So rigid. Well, that's a wrap with our saddles. That 72 came out beautiful. It's that open air, so maybe I'll leave this one open air for a little while and let it dry up a little bit, but it didn't really come out like I thought it would, so maybe it just needs to dry up on its own.